The Stormers' reign as URC champions comes to an end, but they fought tooth and nail to retain their title. My name is Mark, let's talk rugby. Another weekend, another fantastically entertaining final. On this one, Munster, they're looking to put pressure on right from the start. Archer, though, gets pinged at a ruck, but Munster, they're coming back, they're holding on to the ball. They're looking a little bit stilted in possession early on. Stormers have solid defence. Munster look like maybe running lines are a little bit off in the opening few minutes. Both teams, they're managing to turn the ball over and it's competitive at the breakdown. Munster, they're looking to get it out wide, but they're moving the ball, almost at walking pace. And then Frisch, he goes for an offload that just is absolutely never on. Throws the ball forward. LeBock snaps it up. He goes all the way from just inside his own half to go over and score. Converts his own try, and it's 7-0. Stormers, they're just so good on turnover ball in those conditions. Stormers then get pinged for offside. Crowley kicks right into the corner from halfway. It's a hell of a kick because we saw in the semi-final Jack Carty twice in similar position try and do exactly the same on the same field, and he kicked it dead both times. But Crowley was spot on with his kick. Stormers, though, they're able to halt the maul that Munster set up from the line out. They're just short of the line, but then LeBock is pinged for offside. Munster decide to go back into the corner. Byrne claims the line out, and then they manage to maul it over. Barron is the scorer, and that's his third try in 2 games in the last month against the Stormers. Crowley misses the touchline conversion, but Munster are on the board. It's 7-5 to the Stormers. Munster then get themselves a line out in the Stormers 22. What happened was basically Stormers kicked the ball straight into touch after carrying it back in. Munster, though, give away a penalty that I've seen. I've talked about it those times. Irish provinces keep giving away this penalty. Guy goes up to claim the ball. Lifter goes in behind them, obstructs the defence from getting in to contest the ball. And every single Irish province has done it multiple times all through the season. And it's so frustrating to see them do it. And I won't be surprised if Ireland do it in the World Cup as well, because these guys do not seem to learn their lesson from this. But yeah, a good chance gone there. And then from there, Stormers kick up the line. They claim the claim the line out throw. It was strange as well to see that at least at this stage. Maybe a little bit later they did, but up to this point of the game, Munster did not once compete in the line out. And, they've stolen so much opposition ball in the line out, and it's been a real strength of theirs throughout the season. And it was really weird to not see them put a pot up to compete at all. But Munster from here, they're holding onto the ball again. They're beginning to look a bit slicker in possession. Running lines seem to be a bit better. Players are kind of holding their depth to come onto the ball. Crowley then sells a show and go and gets to within 5 meters of the line. Ruse then picks the ball from offside position. He gets himself a yellow card, and feeling at this stage Munster, they got to win this sin bin period because they've been really good, but they're still behind. They decide to go to the corner from the penalty. Stormers, once they set them all up, are able to push them back. Munster, though, they work it back to close to the line, and then we have a TMO check. The on-field decision is a try, but when they check, they decide there's a double movement from Gavin Coombs. It's a strange one here because I can see a lot of people saying that all he's done has placed the ball, but I think basically what the referee and the TMO were saying was that Coombs, first of all, gets tackled, and then his elbow goes down on the ground. So the tackle at that stage is completed. He then moves himself into a position that he can stretch out to score. So I think stretching out to score wasn't the problem. It was that movement to get himself within range to do that. But those ones you could, depending on the referee and the TMO, you could see it given as a try and not as as no try as well. And it's one of those ones where you can kind of see why one set of supporters would feel hard done if the try is given, and the other set of supporters would feel hard done if the try isn't given. So it's kind of a difficult one there. Next, then we have it's a penalty to the Stormers because of that double movement. So they managed to kick it clear. Then Conor Murray, he's been box kicking for Munster, and they've been really good. They've been allowed a kind of hard chase from Munster, get up there and to compete, and they're able to work their way up the field on several occasions. On the back of that, on one of those occasions, then Haley chips ahead into the 22, but then I think it's Nash. It could have been Frisch, but I think it was Nash who knocks on with inside line. He was under pressure from a Stormers player. It wasn't one of these where he just kind of knocks it on, trying to pick it up. Two of them were kind of diving for the ball, and as he slid in, he knocks it on. So a bit unlucky there. But Munster, they're continuing to apply that pressure. Then they've got another attack. The move seems to have lost a bit of momentum, but then Fekito does really well to get them back on the front foot, keeps the ball alive, and that's out on the right to then get the ball out to the left. Pass, I think it was from Crowley. He puts a wide pass in, it goes to ground. Peter O'Malley does really well to scoop it up, and then he breaks into the 22. He offloads to Haley, who goes over in the corner, but then after a check, we see that the pass from O'Malley was forward, so it's no try. Munster, though, they're not going to be denied. They keep coming forward. We have good work from Frisch. That gets them into position. Then Crowley, lovely crossfield kick from him, finds Nash in the corner. The bounce sit up really well. It was kind of above his head, but the way it bounced, it meant that it kind of beat the cover there as well. So he claims the ball. He's got no opposition there. He goes over to score. Crowley converts this one, and Munster hit the lead 12-7. Stormers at this stage, then they're back to 15 players after the yellow card. We then have a long stoppage for treatment to Peter O'Malley. Really good sportsmanship from Dion Fourie to bring the referee's attention to it, because he'd been down on the ground for a few passages of play. O'Malley then goes off for an HIA and he doesn't come back on. Stormers then get themselves the first real chance in possession in the Munster half. Gavin Coombs, he's got hands beyond the ball on the ground, and from the penalty, Stormers kick it into the 22. Stormers then apply pressure and get themselves about 5 metres out, but then Barron dives on a loose ball and Munster can kick clear. It looked like Yanchis maybe lost the ball a little bit. He was kind of looking around to see, who was coming in the next pod. Ball goes to deck, and then Barron dives on it. Munster are able to kick clear. From there, then Murray gets pinged for offside, and it's a penalty to the Stormers. Stormers decide to go to the corner from this penalty. Munster do really well to sack the ball. The hooter goes. Stormers try, I think it was a little kick in behind. Munster gather it, and they're able to get it off the field for half-time. 12-7, Munster still in the lead. Stormers then start the second half on the front foot. Sneeman pinged for not rolling away. LeBock has a very kickable penalty. He goes from the tee, but he misses. And that was very strange because he's been so good from the tee this season. And it was very surprising to see him do that. He did kind of miss a similar one against Connacht, but in the kind of final analysis of that game, it didn't really matter because they won fairly comfortably in the end. But in this one, it did have an impact because I think he should have probably gotten those 3 points. You can't say what would happen for the rest of the game if he had or not, but probably should have got that. Kitsoff then gets himself over the ball, and LeBock this time decides that he's going to go up the line, and it's another great chance for the Stormers. They then get another penalty inside the Munster 22. Klein changes bind inside the maul. And then Stormers, they decide to go to the corner, but then they lose it forward after they try and spread it from the maul that was halted. Stormers, though, they counter, like Munster kick it downfield. Stormers then counter, and Haley, he took out, who was it? Davids, right? And he gets a yellow card for that, and it's a penalty to the Stormers. Munster then are pinged for not rolling away. Another penalty to Stormers. And, feeling at this stage, they've got to start taking the points to Stormers because they're getting all these penalties, but they're not getting a return from it at all. They decide again to go to the corner, and finally they do get some reward from that maul. Maul was kind of hit and miss for them, I felt, throughout the day. Munster defended it well at points, and Stormers made a lot of ground at other times as well. This time, it looks like Munster are defending it well to begin with, but then we've seen the Stormers do this before in other games this season. They're able to actually roll the maul around the edge of the defence, and they do it here, and they get over. Free is the score. Labok converts, and Stormers back in front, 14-12. Munster then start to apply some pressure themselves. You have some, decent kicks, great kick chase from Nash, and interesting tactics from Munster that not only on this occasion, but they used on other occasions as well. What they were doing was the chaser would run beyond the point where the ball was going to land and get there before the ball landed, and then they would turn around and face their own line, so they're ahead of the, in front of the Stormers player who was going to compete for the ball, and then they would compete, and that made it very hard for the Stormers player to compete. So I thought that was kind of interesting, the way that they did that, and Stormers didn't really adapt to it at all. They weren't moving forward to kind of take that space away from the Munster players when they're doing that. Munster then start going through some phases. There's some big carries from the likes of Lockman, Archer, Snyman, Hodnett, all involved there. Gavin Coombs as well was, ball in hand, making those hard carries. He was so good tonight. They then decide to get it out to the backs. Daly makes a half break, get themselves 5 meters out. It feels like, an important point here now where they're starting to apply pressure. They go back to the forwards. Dwyer gets pinged for offside, and Munster decided they're going to go to the corner rather than take, kick would have been, it was definitely kickable, but it was a tough kick, and there was no guarantee that they're going to get to 3 points. So they decided they're going to go, try to at least get to try. So they go into the corner, but they get pinged again for the same thing with the obstruction when they set up the maul. And it's just so frustrating to see Irish provinces do this time and again, and again, it's not just Munster. It seems to be like endemic in the Irish provinces that they've all done it at crucial times. Stormers then begin to put pressure back on Munster, and they've got them on their own line after some kicks through, and then there's pressure on the ruck that's like a metre or two out, but Munster do manage to scramble clear. And again, that felt like an important point of the game because Munster could very easily have conceded a penalty there, which may have given the Stormers that little bit of breathing room in the game, and maybe even led to them being able to take another penalty to stretch it out further. But Munster did so well to get it clear. Coombs then, he hacks the ball forward, and Labok, he's chasing back. He tries to get the ball twice, and the second time kind of stumbles a bit. He doesn't get the ball at all. Byrne gets there then for Munster, and Munster have the ball then, and they feel like they just need a bit of calm heads here. But then there's a poor kick that then allows the Stormers to mark it. I felt like Munster, they could have gotten themselves in decent position there if it just kind of took a breath and kind of reset themselves. But it was very hectic, and both teams after that passage of play looked very tired. And I'm thinking then, fitness could be the thing that wins this, because both teams are puffing. There's lots of hands on knees all around the pitch. It was a breathless passage of play, but still, that took a lot out of both teams, and whoever can push through that in the last 20 minutes could actually get their hands on the trophy. From here then, Stormers start coming forward again. We have some great carry from Nell, gets them some decent position in the 22, but then Lebock makes a silly decision, decides to go on his own out on the left. He gets isolated. Fekito gets over the ball, and it's fine margins, because Lebock, he did some really good stuff and some poor things as well in the game. He was looking to maybe be the hero for his team there, but ended up costing them. Stormers, though, then they're coming back, and they're coming in waves and really stretching that Munster defence. Munster hanging on in there, just not allowing them to make any real clean breaks. But then Munster managed to get the ball upfield again. Lebock, he goes back, claims a kick. I think, was it Haley maybe was coming? One of the Munster backs was coming to challenge him. Lebock initially does really well to sidestep him, but then as he goes to kick, then he gets charged down, and then Munster suddenly have the ball in the Stormers 22 after Stormers being on the ascendancy. Then Munster continue to apply pressure from here. They get the ball out to the left, some really good passing in the back line, and then there's a nice little ball inside to Hodnett, who goes over to score in the corner. Crowley then, nerves of steel. He converts from out wide to make it 19-14 to Munster. They've got the lead with about 2 or 3 minutes left on the clock. Stormers now have to score a try because of that kick landing, and they do get like a decent chance, because Crowley knocks the ball out of the nine's hand at the ruck, and he gets himself a yellow card. Stormers have a penalty. They go up the line from that, and they're against 14 men, so you think they're going to get a chance now to potentially get the try that they need to tie it up, and then maybe a conversion to win it. Munster, initially they defend them all well. Stormers decide to go to the backs. Then they win another penalty for Munster being off feet at the ruck. Lebock goes up the line on the left side of the pitch this time, and they're just inside the 22. Stormers claim the line out to set up the maul. The maul is marching forward, and it's looking ominous here. But then Munster, they regroup, and they manage to halt them 10 metres out when it looked like Stormers might go all the way. They make the ball unplayable, and clock is in the red. That's the game over, and Munster are the URC champions. Stormers, they put up a great defence of their title, but Munster were deserved winners in the end. Let's have a look. Final score was 19-14 to Munster. Let's have a look now at the stats from the game. So on attack, tries 2 for the Stormers, 3 for Munster. Stormers got that early try from Lebock against the run of play. Munster, though, responded well, and that last try that they got there was so important, because I think if they'd gone for a kick, you could see Stormers were winning enough penalties that they probably would have won the game from the tee. So I think it was the right decision for for them to go for that try. Whether they had it gotten it or not, I think it was still the right call to go for it, because Stormers just looked like they could get 3 points to win the game, but they needed it. Possession was 40% to 60%. In the first half, Munster had over 70% possession. Second half, Stormers were in the ascendancy, but Munster, at the times that counted, were able to muster periods of possession that allowed them to get back up there and get that try that won it. Clean breaks, 2 for Stormers, 8 for Munster. I think both teams kind of scrambled very well. Like Stormers, like one of those clean breaks was obviously the try for LeBoc. Defenders beaten, then 7 for the Stormers, 32 for Munster. It just speaks a lot about how Munster played. So many beaten defenders and so few for the Stormers, because normally we see the Stormers would be up there around the same point with Munster. Munster's defence, it creaked at times, but they still held the line. There was a lot of kind of holding on to ankles, or just being able to get somebody down at the second go, like the second tackler coming in to help them. A lot of low chop tackles as well. It helped in terms of the next stat, 19 offloads for the Stormers, 12 for Munster. So both teams looking to keep the ball alive. And the fact that Munster were going for the chop meant that Stormers could get that ball out in from contact as well and keep it alive. But sometimes they were kind of passing to someone who then got swallowed up by the next line of defence as well. So it wasn't creating line breaks the way it maybe normally would for the Stormers with so many offloads. Into defence then, territory 42% to 58%. Again, Munster had about 70-odd% for most of the first half, but Stormers again came back in that second half, and they were the ones that were kind of in the Munster half for a lot of that. But credit to Munster that they didn't concede so many scores that it was impossible for them to come back into the game. Number of tackles then, 191 for the Stormers, 106 for Munster. At one point in the first half, Munster, I think, had 22 tackles to 89 for the Stormers. So that would show you like how much ball that Munster had and how much they were making the Stormers' defence work. And I think that kind of helped them in the second half as well, tiring those bodies out for that crucial period where they were able to get their score. It was a bit more even again in the second half in terms of tackles made. Missed tackles then, 32 for the Stormers, just 7 for Munster. That is a hell of a shift for them. And tackle success, 86% is actually fairly good. I talk, about with the URC that 85 to 87 is generally where you expect a team to be. It's not a bad defensive performance, but 94% from Munster is just exceptional, especially in the final and especially against a team that are so good. And a team that like to, spread the ball and go for that space as well and make you miss tackles. Turnovers 1 then, 8 for the Stormers and 7 for Munster. Again, it was very competitive at the breakdown, both teams being able to turn it over at crucial points in the game. Kicking then, kicks retained. This is a big one. Like Stormers only retaining 1, Munster retaining 5, and those 5 kicks were again in periods where it helped them to get up the field and get in position to put a lot of pressure on the Stormers. That tactic I talked about before, about actually running beyond the ball and then coming back to claim it, helped them, and Stormers didn't seem to be able to adapt to that. Kicking success, if you watch any of my videos in recent times, you know that this stat is absolute BS. It's obviously completely wrong, and I don't know why. Like URC, fix it please, because fix it for next season. Penalties then, 5, just 5 for the Stormers. That is a hell of a effort for them, to be under so much pressure and only concede 5 penalties in the whole game. Munster conceding 13. Generally, when we see a team that badly on the side of the penalty count in a game, they're generally going to be under pressure for most of the game, and we would see a number of yellow cards for them and them losing the game. But Munster, I think one thing that they did was was that they didn't concede a lot of penalties, kind of one after another. Like they concede a penalty and enough time would go that the referee wouldn't see it as an accumulation. So they would do something good to clear the ball, and then Stormers would win another penalty. So I think that really helped them overall. In talking about overall in terms of the teams, like Stormers, they're on the back foot from the start. They capitalised really well on that Munster error for the opening try, but then Munster kept coming at them. Second half performance definitely was an improvement, but they just couldn't keep Munster out at the end when it counted, and they couldn't take their chance at the end there either. They wanted to send Kits off, give him a send off with another trophy now that he's going to Ulster for next season, but that wasn't to be for them. I think they've been, a great ambassador for rugby, I think, all through the season. I've watched a lot of the games. I covered a lot of them on the channel. If you go back, you'll see that. And I think they really played their part in an epic final today. Munster, they're on top in that first half. Maybe didn't score as many points as their dominance would have indicated. But then again, they did well in defence when things turned around in the second half. Then Munster, I guess is the same thing in this context. But Munster, that attack, that got them ahead. And then, Munster were in ninth place after 11 rounds of the regular season. And even coming towards the end, like just before their tour to South Africa, there were still people worried about whether they were going to make the playoffs, because if they'd lost both of their tour games in South Africa, they could actually finish back down in ninth place. So the way they turned their season around, you could see all through the season how that defense went from being, pretty much a shambles at the start of the season to really clicking well. That centre partnership of Frisch and Fekitoa really came into its own. I think Crowley being at 10 as well really helped them in that. And then the back three as well, just as a unit. They all just improved all through the season. And then the carrying and offloading of the forwards as well really helped with that. And I think, amazing how they just were able to turn the season around and develop all the way through it. And I have to say, even as a Leinster fan, it's great to see Munster getting their hands on a trophy after, kind of being in the shadows for a long time. Because, for me, I might be a Leinster fan, but first of all, I'm an Irish rugby fan. And, I'm not someone who cheers against other provinces. I always support the other provinces that want to see them do well, because the way I see it is that the more provinces that are strong and that are winning things, it bodes well for the future of Irish rugby.